Live now.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and all our attendees. It's time to deep dive into our next panel discussion. Now, prior to this, we were understanding all the realms around the cyber security for the future, but now it's time to shift the gear and move towards driving customer experience strategies through technology. We're talking about evolving business models against the backdrop of disruptive technologies. So let's quickly bring on board our set of speakers. In fact, this particular session will be spearheaded and moderated by Mr. Kamlesh Manuja, Chief Operations Officer, Edelweiss Tokyo Life Insurance Company Limited. He's a highly committed and focused professional with sound interpersonal and leadership qualities. So it'll be only befitting to have him on board to extract as many perspectives as possible from fellow panelists that include Ms. Katrina Briedis, Senior Product Marketing Manager with Denodo, who comes with more than 20 years of information technology experience covering software development, project delivery, software sales, and marketing. In fact, her expertise lies in data integration, business intelligence, and analytics. We're also joined by Mr. Vinod Bhat, CIO, Vistara, TATA SI Airlines Limited. In fact, he's a business leader with more than 28 years of extensive experience in driving business transformation for global businesses. Joining us, we also have Mr. Saurabh Gupta, Vice President and Head Group IT, Anand Group India. He's a technocrat with more than 18 years of experience in the areas of digital transformation and strategic planning. As we move forward in terms of introducing our panelists, let's also introduce Mr. Amit Malakar, Senior Vice President and Head New Technologies and Business Platforms, Welspun One Logistics Parks. In fact, he's an experienced business leader whose expertise ranges in IT, business consulting, as well as selling logistics. We also have Mr. Prashant Jagatia, Head Information Technology, Bridgestone India, who's joining us as a panelist. He's a manufacturing technology and operations management expert, having more than 20 years of experience in the tire and rubber industry. Joining our panelists, we also have Mr. Mohit Mathur, Head Business Excellence Vedantu Innovations Private Limited, and he comes with more than 20 years of senior leadership experience in business transformation across the industry domains. And that leaves me with our final speaker, Mr. David Zackham, Vice President Analytics, Swiggy, an astute analytics professional with more than 20 years of rich and varied multifunctional and multi-geography experience. That sums up our set of panelists, which means it's time to deep dive, because I do believe at the heart of whatever designations we all hold, we're customers, consumers. So it's interesting to gather that customer experience strategies from none other than our industry stalwarts. With that, let's deep dive into this very pertinent session.
Live now.
Hi, good afternoon to all our viewers and my fellow panelists. I'm Kamlesh Manuja, your moderator for today's session. I'm extremely delighted to moderate this panel and to be amongst the diverse panelists of, I would rather say, as per the introduction which Kavya gave, I see a blend of a B2C and a B2B, which directly deals with consumer, and the team which provides solutions to make the entire disruption possible, to make the lives easier for our end consumer. As we talked about, our theme for today's panel is essentially talking about two things: how our business models can be evolved in a backdrop of technology. And largely, today's panel is going to talk about disruptive technology. And the second part is, how do we enhance our customer experience using strategies which goes beyond technology, and also to an extent leveraging data and analytics in a composite form. I will start with a quick overview which also sets the context for our today's panel discussion. We've seen the impact of coronavirus pandemic across the globe has been largely disruptive, both on economic activity wise, as well as a loss to human lives, which is quite sad, what we witness as a history of almost more than 100 years. While we've seen certain amount of crisis, if I were to look at our sector, which is insurance. We've seen a huge amount of lives which got lost, and the insurance companies had to pay huge amount of claims. There have been job losses, especially with respect to the sectors which have come to standstill, like travel, hospitality, and the sectors which were in the play of leisure activities. However, as the globe now adopts and adjusts to this new normal, there are also many opportunities, I should call it silver linings, which we have seen post pandemic. The first and foremost has been rapid migration to digital technology, which is actually kind of becoming disruptive in more than one way in order to make the end solution for the consumer more better. We've seen our workings have become more remote. It's more from work from offices become to a norm to work from anywhere. And the third important change or the shift is happen in the changes in the consumer behavior by consumption of technologies. And we've seen in multiple sectors. We've seen in healthcare, we've seen in telemedicine following COVID. We've seen the retail getting migrated to e-com from a behavior and the consumer consumption point of view. And largely, we've seen the change in digital transactions. This is a behavior change what we've seen, and we are fairly confident that this would stick from a long perspective. As COVID may propel faster adoptions of automation, it may adopt certain amount of behaviors which can be capsulated with AI and ML kind of data analytics to studying in form of the behaviors. But especially in the work arenas, which have a higher physical proximity, it has actually driven a huge amount of transformation. We've seen grocery stores moving to e-com. We've seen call centers operating from home. We've seen manufacturing plant, which are high in density, is kind of cope surge in demand. We've seen leveraging data analytics and machine learning kind of a bit. Without much ado, I have a diverse panel with me. I would kind of spin this particular overview which I have talked about, and I would want to know from my fellow colleagues, how has the COVID changed the outlook for your respective sector, and what is the new normal in your respective sector looking like? We can start with Katrina, and I'll talk about the names of the panel member to talk about 2 minutes of about their own sectors, and also what is the disruption or the new normal is looking like. So Katrina, we can start with you.
Sure, thanks for having me today. I think I really represent the technology sector. So we talk to many customers across many industries, and a lot of them have been affected in different ways when it comes to COVID. But what they've shared with us, and I think particularly in the finance industry with some of the customers I've worked with, is that during COVID, they've not had the data that they've needed, particularly when it comes to assessing risk, looking at the hardship that's experienced by their customers, perhaps looking at mortgage deferrals and things like that, and really getting a grip on the situation. So, and another area is that other customers, mainly in government, talk about in Australia particularly, is sharing data across government, and that was needed very much so during COVID. But they weren't ready for it. There was a lot of reluctance to share data because they weren't confident with the data that they were sharing. So there's a lot of stories that we can share around how people weren't able to adapt very quickly. They didn't have the flexibility or agility within their business and systems to adapt to things like the pandemic. And I think that's, the short of it is for me, from my point of view, is that the new normal is to ensure that we have adaptability going forward. I think as simple as that.
Appreciate. Thank you, Katrina. Vinod, can we have your views from your sector, how COVID has changed the outlook and how is the new normal looking like?
Thank you, Kamlesh, for having me. It's great to be part of this esteemed panel discussion. Yes, I think airlines is no different. Probably the sector which was hit hard by COVID. But there is a good news, bad news. So the good news is that today we are already used to the new norm. The definition of the new norm is there. So the processes are getting standardized. So there's a good control on demand supply. Touch wood will not have one more wave. But I think those things are streamlined. So what it has changed is that the perimeter of the organization, I think the whole we talk about the work from home, the hybrid workforce, I think that has put internally as well as for the customers, that the new way to approach the whole security, new way to approach the disruption management. The disruption management is the change in the flights, even the regulatory changes which you need to do on the fly. I think those kind of things have, we have got a lot more resilience, a lot more adaptability, a lot more agility, and to make those things happen quickly. But more important from the customer point of view, if you look at the customer point of view, the whole channel strategy has changed. It is more about more omni-channel, more about getting consistent experience across channels, more about these things being seamless to the customer, more about how do you handle the complaints and disruptions from the customer point of view, because the customer is already frustrated because of COVID, because so much SOPs are for hygiene and safety, which we had to do. Obviously, there are a lot of technologies which helped us to become more touchless. But from customer point of view is that their expectation is a lot more. I think that whole from internal, from employees perspective, customer perspective, I think the new norm is defined. And as you rightly said, that we're not going to go back where we started because the rules of the game have changed, and this is going to stay. And good news is that we have, I think, got handle on what we're trying to do now, and hopefully it is going to improve further.
Excellent, Vinod, and I hope there is no third wave for all of us.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Thank you. Prashant, can we have your views on the same question, please?
Yeah, thank you, Kamlesh, and good afternoon, everyone. And I'm happy to be here and discussing. I think it's a most relevant and topic which we should be discussing, considering the customer centricity and what disruptions will be affecting the customers going forward. So, as you rightly mentioned, there are good and bad stories about pandemic, and pandemic has changed the outlook. I would say rather a paradigm shift in our outlook, how we see the marketplace, how we see our personal and professional life. So coming to the personal, surely I think we all agree that we have put a lot of emphasis and now giving more weightage to our health and well-being, which is important. And at the organizational level and at professional level, really we have come to understand the meaning of VUCA. So we have been listening this word for quite a long time, but we have really, I think, experienced VUCA, and especially in our sector, which is predominantly a very competitive sector and a retail-oriented sector. So this was really felt very hard, and I would say, but this has given a real learning for us, how we should be operating, and not only during the pandemic, but also that has given us a direction how we should be operating for the future. So mainly the three key areas where we as an organization focused is surely safety and health is priority for the employees, for all stakeholders, for our customers. And we put a lot of emphasis during the pandemic, but not only during the pandemic, we will be continuously focusing in future also. Second is agility. So agility is the thing which we have taken very seriously, not only during pandemic, but also we moving forward. This would be our theme for future, all initiatives which we would be taking. Quickly giving the examples, like of course we were talking about remote working. You were mentioning about remote working. So as every organization must have done, we have quickly provided the infrastructure support for all remote working to our employees, and quickly getting the licenses for Office 365 or for making enablement for the support of connectivity of our MES and ERP systems so that we get business critical data, and data driven decisions can be taken even while working from remote. Then there is also an important point regarding to the sales force, because there was completely market was closed and we still have to maintain the connect with our customers. So we launched a Salesforce automation program, and Salesforce automation program was launched during the pandemic, and that gives a sales team empowerment to have fruitful dialogue with our customers. Also, the supply chain agility, being a tire industry, we deal with lots of raw materials coming from various parts of the world, and we felt that supply chain agility is one of the key areas where lots of things have to be done. We started doing on those areas like venturing into integrated supply chain plannings, and also having a control tower to monitor the real-time data of a supply chain. So those are the areas I would say. And the last but not the least, about lean and efficient manufacturing. So these are the areas where we felt that we learned a lesson hard way during the pandemic, but that's a lesson which we will be taking forward and improving upon further. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Prashant, for talking about the VUCA concept and really COVID being one of it. And so we'll go to Saurabh to hear his views. Saurabh, we can't hear you. Saurabh, your voice is not audible. I think you're on unmute, but I think there's some issue with the connection. It's not giving us.
Is it better? Is it better, Kamlesh?
Yes, yes. Perfect,
Okay.
Saurabh.
Thanks. So I think the impact of COVID-19 on automotive sector has been swift and significant. It impacted us both on our demand side and supply side. Demand side, obviously, when there was a lockdown, there were no sales. The customer sales, consumer sales have still picked up, but commercial sales are still not there. So I think there's a long-term impact which has happened. And the last impact is more on the supply side. So a lot of the suppliers were outside India. So when the import had to happen, some of the containers didn't turn up, the prices had gone up. They went to other places, it had to be routed. So I think the complete supply chain for automotive sector has been disrupted by this COVID, and it has still not stabilized in my perspective. You still see that there is a 6 months or 8 months wait for some of the vehicles, which is still going on, and companies are not able to serve it. So that has been a significant problem with respect to COVID. If you look at typical manufacturing organization, the process of digitalization has been extremely slow. But what COVID has done is actually started that rapid change. I mean, if you now look at it, a lot of these tier 2 and tier 3 kind of manufacturers, they've started talking about RPAs, IoTs, robotics, and then how can you actually automate most of your factory so that with minimum manpower you can remotely operate it. And I think these kind of changes which is becoming the new normal. So I'm part of some of the automotive forums, and we regularly now discuss how do we automate the system, how do we make sure that the factories can be automated, digitized. We remove paper intervention. We don't have, we move to paperless environment. We provide computers, and then these factories are remotely monitored. So if you look at the OEMs and the tier 1 manufacturers, I think most of them are automated. But when you look at tier 2, tier 3, I think the new normal is that these guys have also started looking at digitization and digitalization, which is a significant step. So if you look at some time back, industry 2.0 itself was very difficult to find in most of the organization manufacturing setup. Now people are actually talking about going to 4.0. So I think there's still time, but the discussion has started. How do we reach there? Also, I think that when you look at the new normal with respect to COVID, what has happened in manufacturing setup, that a lot of organizations which were dependent on the imports, they've started localization of their suppliers. So, I mean, if you look at without naming some of these big OEMs, they actually look at, now they are asking their vendors to set up the factories within 25-30 kilometers. So even if there is a lockdown in future, their supplies, raw materials are not disrupted. I think this is what COVID has changed. It has pushed the digitalization, robotics usage, RPA, IoT, which we used to think that these are only things that we discuss or maybe good for case studies or paperwork. But now people have started using them. If you see a lot of these factory heads, they actually have a tool on their mobile and they are monitoring the performance of their lathe machine, the performance of their chiller plants, and they are actually able to control it and they see the value. And once they are seeing the value, I think that is further making it fast that these digitization operations happen. That's it from my side.
Thank you, Saurabh. Indeed, I think the trend is clearly shifted to innovative form of AI and also digitization. Mohit, can we have your views on the change post-COVID?
Sure. Yeah, sure. Thanks, Kamlesh, and good afternoon, everybody. It's really an interesting discussion which is going and everybody giving their perspective. So I represent here a relatively very new sector, which is education technology, EdTech, right? And of course, we were kind of positively impacted because we all know, with our kind of kids and our friend kids and families and everybody, that the learning actually came to a standstill when the schools closed down in the COVID times, and a lot of online classes started to happen. So I think, and even in the remotest parts of India, where fortunately now we have good internet kind of availability through mobile phones and through the 4G networks and all of those kind of things, we were actually able to reach to a large set of students. In fact, we are now one of the largest K-12, which is kindergarten to class 12th providers in education. And we actually saw a 7 to 8x growth in 1 year. So kind of online education really accelerated a lot. And a number of people realized how, of course, there have been challenges with younger kids and all of that, which we are trying to solve through technology. But it has pretty much become kind of a new normal where students are dividing their time between studying at home, and now we see that some of the schools are actually coming back on. But we really feel that in the future it'll remain a bit hybrid, and a lot of learning, at least outside of school, will continue to happen through the homes. And what we are trying to really bring in, how do we improve the overall engagement of the students, ensure that the learning has continuity. In fact, we have tied up with some of the leading DTH providers, direct to home providers, where students even don't have internet. So we are now tied up with Tata, Sky and Airtel to give our classes to the remotest part of India on televisions, which are very interactive in nature and come at very nominal cost as well. So I think what our kind of vision is to ensure that the learning continues, and even in the new normal, lockdowns or no lockdowns, I know, fingers crossed, we shouldn't have another one. But of course, even if it does happen, and in the newer circumstances, we continue with the kids learning, whether it is through the mobile networks, through the broadband networks, or even without that on the TV through interactive channels. So that's a new normal for us.
Fantastic, Mohit. I think you've done a very noble cause in terms of eliminating the geographical divide and ensure the education for the country is ongoing. So appreciate the efforts. Can we have Amit's view on post-COVID impact?
Sure. Thanks, Kamlesh. Great to be part of this panel. So I represent Welspun, one logistic park, and essentially we are as brick and mortar as you can get. So we essentially create logistics infrastructure, which is large warehouses, grade A warehouses, and warehousing parks. So one of the biggest impact of COVID is that we realize how important logistics is, right, for the economy of the country. And at the start, when we really did not know how to handle a lockdown, the entire country had come to a standstill. logistics was not moving, trucks were not moving, warehouses were not operating, and we realized very quickly, that logistics is actually an essential service, right? So, from there to now, a lot of things have happened, notably, e-commerce becoming front and center and a very, very important aspect of our lives, right? So with e-commerce, what has happened is that almost everyone's buying online. I'm sure all of us are. And with e-commerce, what has happened is retail shelves have given space, have been replaced by warehousing shelves, right? So what you would go to a shop and buy, now you're sitting in your home on your screen and buying, and that is being fulfilled from a warehouse close by, right? So which is with the predominance of e-commerce, it has led to a huge demand of warehousing. And so while we are positively impacted, we also know that we probably are not able to generate enough supply of good quality warehousing as much as what the country needs and as much as what the economy needs, right? The other aspect which I think Kamlesh brought out in his opening remark was the fact that there's been a lot of migration or reverse migration from tier 1 cities to tier 2, tier 3s and back to the villages. And that has also impacted our sector. So in the past, warehouses were predominantly in the cities, and now, tier 2 cities and tier 3 cities where consumption has risen up because of this migration, is now seeing a lot of requirement for, same day deliveries, next day deliveries, and that is requiring, stocking locations to come up and warehousing to come up. Right now, with COVID and restrictions around it, and quite rightly so, safety became predominant, right? This whole manufacturing and warehousing space, manufacturing was always very high on safety. Warehousing was not so, but thankfully regulation has now brought in safety as a very important aspect. And while we want to make sure everything's happening right in the right manner, compliances have become important, right? So it is fairly unregulated, and now we see a lot of compliance coming in. And you want to do things remotely. So we learned to do business remotely. We learned to do business online. We set up our company in the middle of COVID. We hired people in the middle of COVID. We raised capital. We launched a category 2 AIF in the middle of COVID. And then we learned to actually monitor our construction and show our sites to customers in a very, very digital manner, right? So we leverage drones in a big way. So a customer sitting out of Delhi, not able to travel to Bombay, but they want to see the real estate space that we are building for them. And that's through a lot of digital platforms. So I think we've just learned to build business and operate business on digital means. And that's been a huge, post-COVID gain for our sector.
Fantastic, Mohit. I think I must share what you stated. I'm also associated with Welspun in a form of EIF. So it's fantastic to hear from you. But last but not the least, can we have views from Mr. David on post-COVID impact?
Yeah, thanks, Kamlesh. Nice to be here, like everyone else. The thing about going last is everyone has said what they wanted to say.
Sorry about that. Sorry.
I'll actually still repeat the three major points I just wanted to make. I think Prashant from Bridgestone has made two of the points. For Swiggy, right, we had actually two different kinds of COVID impact. Okay, the first wave, overnight, we lost 90% of our business, and like most of the people who were talking, right, 90% of our business gone. We didn't even know how to get a restaurant open because the cops would come and shut down a restaurant, and or a district collector would just shut down the district, and there's nothing we can do, right? Places like Chennai were shut down from March all the way till September, by the way. Massive impact to our business. The second wave was exactly the opposite. Because people had started getting used to having fun, and suddenly the second wave happened, and people were like, hey, the only way to safely have fun is to order food inside the house. Okay, our orders actually spiked when the second lockdown was announced and the second wave happened, and that seemed to be the safe way to have fun for people, as opposed to the first wave where people were like, hey, food is not safe. So that brought in a level of volatility to our business, which is what Prashant was all talking about, where one wave saw us lose 90% business, and the second wave, like, we caught up everything from before COVID, and now we are like way above what we used to be before COVID itself. Okay, that volatility is what we are seeing. Second is it's created new business opportunities. Like Kamlesh, you mentioned at the beginning, right? People are more comfortable being digital nowadays, especially on the grocery side. I don't know if you guys know, but there's a massive war happening. For example, Big Basket, I think, tripled during the first wave. But they said, we'll give your groceries tomorrow. Okay. And then Swiggy said, hey, we'll give your orders in 45 minutes. Okay. And then Dunzo said, hey, we will do it in 19 minutes. Okay. And then Grofer said, we'll do it in 10 minutes. Okay. So that war, actually, people are telling me that Grofer says 10 minutes, but they still deliver in 30 minutes, which is a different problem, by the way. But that instant convenience grocery is heating up so much because there's so much demand for instant grocery in the market. And just in 1 quarter, our Instamart business has doubled in just 1 quarter, right? It's a huge, it's not a small business, it's a big business now. What that is leading to is the second point I was making, which also Prashant mentioned, which is the need to be agile to make use of these business opportunities. Because there are 5 or 6 companies fighting in that space now. A year later, there'll just be 2. So unless we are agile, we're not going to be successful, right? That's the second point. Third point, I think Saurabh kind of hinted at it, is decentralized decision making. Okay, you can't expect your factory from 1,000 kilometers away to supply us. And if Swiggy, if you know, is a very hyper local business, you could have rain in 1 square kilometer of Bangalore, and that disrupts only that small area, and the rest of the Bangalore works fine, but you have to make choices for that 1 square kilometer part, right? That's a big deal for us. So one of the things we're trying to do is, how do we empower people at the edges to make those decentralized decision making? How can we have people accountable at the ground level? How can we make the decisions happen in seconds and minutes as opposed to hours and days? Okay, so that's the third trend, I would say. Volatility, agility, and decentralized decision making. I think these are the changes that that we've seen because of COVID.
Awesome, David. I think super summarized, and that's the reason we kept you at the last. So
thank you.
So, but wonderful insights. So I think as we have diverse panel and we have short amount of time, so we will quickly zoom in. Essentially, if you, what I talked about, the theme are into 3 cohorts. One is on disruptive technology. Second is on how do we enhance customer experience and then probably using different strategies. And third is using data analytics. So this question is to Vinod and Mohit, is specifically when we are zooming in your businesses. What do you see today's consumer is expecting from your respective sectors or organizations? And are you seeing certain trend which is evolving within your sectors? If you can throw some light for our viewers. We can have
I'll start. Yeah, I'll start. See, Kamlesh, as I said in the beginning, that the behavior of the customer purchase, the behavior of the customer experience, or even the support, it has completely changed, and it is evolving as we speak also. So in terms of the options, whether when they have to buy the tickets, the channels they use to buy the tickets, I think that has changed from the customer point of view. And they want consistent experience across channels. So they have they want ability to do half the purchase from the mobile and then half the purchase from some other device or some other channel. So that is one thing. Second is they want personalized offers. So they don't want to, even though they are in the same segment, but they truly want a hyper personalization, 1:1 offers, which is very relevant for them. So analytics and data plays a huge role there, where we need to really understand that what customer is doing, what kind of tastes, preferences, choices, campaigns, marketing campaigns, and other things will be relevant for that customer. And also it goes to the whole, the messaging, the whole communication we have with the customer, because if the customer is not having preference for a particular thing, there's no point sending offers to the customer. And then the whole, I would say, post-flight experience, in-flight and post-flight, both have changed. So if you look at particularly post-flight, where the customer is expecting the way the baggage is managed seamlessly, the way the points are getting accrued seamlessly, the way complaints are handled seamlessly, and being more proactive. It's about also how you communicate back before the customer raises any concerns, and proactively telling them your flight is changing, your bag is getting mishandled, or getting a new flight. So I think those kind of expectations have changed, and also airline industry is actually trying to be a little bit more proactive than actually reacting to the complaint, and giving particularly the customer who is traveling across the globe, are there in transit, raising it, and also empowering the employees on the ground who will have the right tools in with them, who can address those questions on the fly. So I think those are some of the strategies, but data and analytics is a big part, particularly after online, which everything COVID will have a lot more data now generated. And also one point which many people probably don't think, that when we talk of airlines, people think about the end customers. Yes, that's true. But if flight has to take off and land on the right time, there are engineering folks, flight operations, ground services, making sure those systems are running up to the mark in terms of SLAs and time. That's why the flights are landing on time. That's why customer experience is good. So you need to focus on those support systems also, and the tools which are helping them to make it happen.
Absolutely, Mr. Vinod. One who makes the food for us is equally important in terms of one who gives the food to us. So absolutely brilliant thought. Mr. Mohit, over to you.
Yeah, so I think definitely customer experience is the key, right? And if you really see the edtech sector, what we are trying to kind of impact is the whole education. And we all know, right? I mean, how important education is for every parent in ensuring that their kids are in right hands, ensuring that their learning is kind of happening correctly. So I think customer experience plays an extremely important role as far as, of course, the education industry is concerned. I would just kind of reflect, I think you asked some of the latest trends. So just this JEE results that we got out, which is basically the entrance examination, most of us would have kind of heard about it. We saw about 6% of overall students who will go and study at IITs this year being part of the Vedantu curriculum. So I think we have been able to make a huge mark on that. With respect to this learning, which has happened all online in the last 1 year. And in fact, a very interesting statistic is that 60% of those students are actually coming from tier 2 and tier 3 towns of India. So there were always kind of availability of good teachers in, let's say, metros, if you talk about Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, Pune. So, but if you really talk about tier 2 and tier 3 towns, that is where we had challenges in terms of, I mean, we all know, right? I mean, hardly we listen to anybody that they want to become teachers. And then it's not the most sought after kind of profession, unfortunately, and it should be, because they are the ones who shape the next generation of leaders, the next generation of innovators and everybody, right? So we need good teachers, and we need good teachers everywhere through the length and breadth of India. So I think with the technology, by using a lot of kind of solutions to engage our kids rightly, to ensure that we kind of keep a tab on how they're kind of learning on our platform, we are able to deliver these results. And I mean, obviously the latest results show how important it is and the kind of impact we have been able to kind of make. And we are now one of the largest kind of K-12 providers. In fact, we run multiple YouTube channels also, which are free, and we have monthly views of more than 65 million students looking at our videos. Some of them are even 3D, right? I mean, when you're kind of explaining concepts in chemistry and physics and mathematics and a number of subjects, it becomes important that it is not just a theory that you're telling the kid, but actually you're showing them in a very highly interactive way. And that's where a lot of technology kind of comes into play, by showing them 3D models, by kind of creating literally like areas where they can feel what they're learning. And that's what we have been able to do. And that's the experience that we are kind of obviously delivering to our students, which is much more end-to-end. And I think that's what we continue to do. Yeah.
Thank you, Mohit. I completely echo with you in terms of the delivery, which is the quality as well as consistency, both has led to the end outcome, which you talked about, 6% in the JEE results. So we'll move to the second cohort, or the second theme part is on the technology bit. And this question, I would want to address it to Katrina first and then to David, is what are your top technology trends? And when we heard initially both from data adaptability and David from your side, when you talked about how wave one and wave two created an impact, how have you leveraged technology, data analytics and insights to deliver the desired results for your organization? So Katrina, we can start with you and then we can hear from David.
Sure. I think one of the biggest trends is still something that's been around for a while, and that's data democratization, I think, and making data accessible to everyone. And I hear a lot of organizations tell us that providing visibility into the data or access to the data is the easy part. The challenging part is really educating the users of the business how to use data, and having more of a data culture has to be, a top-down approach, but it does require education. And I think that, technologies now need to have more capability around making it more simplified and easier to understand. But from a data perspective, we need to start looking at that, data that's, available for self-service, but in a governed way, so that we have flexibility. We can, collaborate on data, share data, reuse data a lot more than we have in the past, and start to bring trust back into data as well. So it's really about, I have a very much a data perspective on everything, having an analytics background, but there's a lot of information that we can make available to users, but we need to make sure they understand it first of all.
Excellent. Fair. I think it's an interesting perspective. David, can we have your thoughts, please?
Actually, fully agree with what Katrina said. Maybe I'll just add a few things to what Katrina said as well. There are three specific things I want to talk about. First trend that we are seeing is the need for real-time data to make real-time decisions. Okay, because most businesses are running 24/7, and you don't want to wait till tomorrow or till the next sprint cycle of the tech team to actually figure out what's to be done. So we have built tools, for example, which run on the phone, giving up to the minute availability of data to everybody who wants it. Okay, so this real-time availability of data and insights is one important thing. Second thing is, I would say a combination of two things: hyper-local, smart ways of running the business. Okay, so when I say that, right, you can say things like delayed orders, for example. You look at Delhi as a city and you might think that, hey, delayed order seems to be all right. But if you zoom into one location, let's say Chandni Chowk or Haus Khas, those might be like hotspots, whereas the rest of Delhi kind of matching up or kind of averaging out the bad parts, right? As I said, the Swiggy business runs hyper-local, and we can't be having humans look at that hyper-local things and say, hey, there seems to be something wrong here. So what we are investing heavily on at Swiggy is to look at the business in that hyper-local way. And because we have thousands, maybe tens of thousands of those hyper-local areas, you can't have humans look at it. Can we have machines look at it? When something is anomalous, can we use machine learning AI to identify the anomalies and tell the people to actually take action? So we're building systems where they identify the anomaly. They actually also do a first level root cause analysis by themselves, okay, to tell people why the anomaly is happening. And then you get a nice well-formatted email and a dashboard available. All this running in real time also. Okay, that's the second thing, which is hyper-local smart ways of running the business. Okay, third thing, what Katrina said, which is data democratization is not just giving access to data. That's a huge initiative that I have done this year. So I actually had an aggressive conversation with my CEO. So I was like, hey, Harsha, you call yourself a tech company, but most of our company doesn't know SQL. Okay. I will agree that we are a tech company only when at least 500 people are 4 out of 5 on SQL. Okay. Great guy. He's like, yes, David, we need to make it happen. So So what we've done all of 2021 is for the non-tech savvy people, right? We've given them a no-code analysis platform where you can just click, next, finish, and you actually get your tables and your data available right there. Okay. We've enabled people to do their own SQL queries. So for example, we have English questions. If you click on the English questions, you get a SQL query back. Okay. You take the SQL query, change the date, change the city, submit it, and you have your answers already. Third thing, we've invested in data dictionaries. Most companies don't have good quality data dictionaries because the difficult thing about SQL is not SQL itself, it's the knowledge of the data. So what's there in what table, right? How do we get hundreds of these tables carefully curated at very high quality and made available to everybody in the org? So 1,000 people in the org have access to this data dictionaries now using an enterprise level software. Then the fourth thing we've done is literally taught people SQL. Okay, so 500 people got a SQL certification program so they can actually write their own SQL queries. And the fifth one is what we're calling as analyst office hours. So if you have any problem with any of the other four items, every week, every function has something called office hour where an analyst is waiting in a room. Any problem you have, please come to us, we'll help you solve it. Okay. And in return, what we're doing is any simple work, please do it yourself. Okay. The 500 people that we've trained on all these things, they've got to do it the simple work themselves. The analytics team will only do the complex work. Okay. Just one quick answer about what we've achieved is every week, 15 to 20,000 queries are executed by non-analytics, non-tech team members. Okay. There's a massive amount of analysis that people are doing because of this initiative. It's taken a year to get there, but imagine 20,000, 15,000 queries every week being run by non-analytics folks. That's the amount of decentralization we've been able to receive, we've been able to achieve in this one. Okay. So real time, smart businesses and decentralized analytics. Those are the things that we are seeing now.
Thank you, David. I think it's a fantastic structured answer to this question.
Thank you. Thank you.
Short of time, I'll quickly pace it up and seek views from other panelists. We'll come to the last section of disruption in technology and innovations. This question is routed to Mr. Amit, Prashant, and Saurabh. If you all can talk about what are the disruptions or innovations you foresee which is going to come in your sector. So we can start with Amit, go to Prashant, and take Saurabh's view.
Yeah, so physical disruptions necessitated that we have tech-driven disruptions in our business. So warehousing per se and construction both were very, very manpower-intensive businesses. And with COVID and with the disruption, we realized that not enough people could come to work. Work still had to happen. So there's a lot more conveyors and machines and robotics which have come inside warehouses. So things are moving faster. So there is machine working alongside a human to get the work done faster, more scalable, safer, right? And with all this technology coming in place, all this automation coming in place, there's a lot of power being used, right? So now we want to be green. So we want to have sustainable living and circular economy. So now our space is seeing a lot of rooftop solar. So a lot of sustainable renewables energy sources coming inside these large logistics parks and warehousing parks. And overall, we're making smarter buildings, right? So we're making bigger buildings. We're making buildings which are able to churn out more throughput, more business throughput out, using the same people, more technology, and better power. So we are able to do more with less, and and able to reach more people, right? So these are the kind of innovation that are happening with us.
Thank you, Mr. Prashant.
Yeah, so I think more towards business model disruptions rather than tech disruptions. Of course, tech is going to support those models. So in our sectors, we are now moving towards solutions. Earlier, the customers were wanting products, but now they want solutions. So we offer mobility solutions because the customer behavior is changing post-pandemic. And also we are providing those models like subscription-based models for tires. Then, of course, giving a real-time monitoring of tire performance by IoT devices so that they can see how their tires are doing. It's a great application or a utility for a fleet manager. And of course, we were talking about omni-channel experiences. So yes, omni-channel experience, not only for B2B customers, but B2C customers also, and contactless and ease of availing tire services by applications such as booking the services online and getting the services at home on the move. So these are some of the areas I would say that will surely be continuous innovation in this area, and tech is will always be a center of focus for enabling these business models. Yeah.
Saurabh?
So I think one of the core, I think, things will happen is related to autonomous vehicle. That is what I feel. So it may be a pace setter in the automobile industry. A lot of these companies like Tesla and Google are heavily investing in autonomous vehicle, and I personally believe if the technology and regulatory changes are resolved in next, let's say, couple of years, then we can see autonomous vehicle by 2030, somewhere around that time, commercialized and should be available to people. I think that will be a major trend setter in terms of automobile industry. Second is the electric vehicle. We have already seen there is a huge adoption of two-wheeler that is already happening. There is a surge of two-wheeler electric bikes, etc., which is happening, which is yet to happen in four-wheelers. But I think that will totally depend on how the regulatory bodies are pushing the emission norms, as well as there is a pull from customers to reduce on their expenditure, availability of charging stations. So that can be another trend which I feel will be coming shortly for four-wheelers. Two-wheelers, it is already there. And as Prashant mentioned, I think based on the shared mobility, connectivity services and feature upgrades, we'll have a lot of new business models which will start disrupting tradition. There's already a taxi player which started a two-wheeler electric company, and then everybody is running around how are they going to handle it, because depends, like it will impact all the automobile component people who are manufacturing petrol or filters, air fuel injectors, etc. And suddenly you realize that those things will not work. Maybe in 6 months' time, everything that you do will have to change. So I think that these kind of organizations which can invest, which have very good technology access, will start doing a lot of disruption.
Absolutely, Saurabh. I completely agree with you. So quickly, we've just, we've exceeded our time. So, but this is an interesting question for all the panel members, because this could be a strategy input for many of our viewers. One key disruption which you believe in your sector could happen potentially for tomorrow's organization. I would want each one of you to talk about that, maybe in one word or in one line, so that our viewers can actually pick up what tomorrow organization should be prepared for. We'll start with Katrina and in the same flow as the first question. So Katrina, one disruption you foresee for tomorrow's organization?
I'm going to base my answer on something I read that Gartner have highlighted in this area. And I think it's really about the next digital disruption when it comes to the type of data that we'll have to handle. I'm all about data, as I said before, but it's about maybe the emotional data or the experience data. And what I mean by that is the biometric data that can be captured from our cameras, like right now. So you can determine, the mood of the person you're talking to, via the laptop camera, which is interesting, I think, and but changes the types of data that we, as technologists as well have to handle, and as data, as we deliver data initiatives as well, we'll have to handle that type of data, and obviously that affects the user experience at the end of the day as well. So that's all I have to say on that particular topic. Thank you.
Yeah, very, very, very interesting and very diverse. Mr. Vinod, can we have one input or one disruption which you envisage?
It will be, we believe that the biometric digital identity supported with, I would say, digital health passport, which will continue. I think that will be the trend which we'll see more and more. When face will be your boarding pass, everything, you don't have to carry anything actually. And we'll see that happening in India as we speak. So you'll see a lot of that, but we'll see that trend will continue, and you don't have to carry your own vaccination certificate showing to the whole world. It will be there with them.
Excellent. Mohit?
Yeah, I think we feel that it has to be about the student engagement on online learning platforms, which can lead to better learning outcomes. So I think engagement is on online platforms is one of the key things.
Okay. Okay. Amit?
Yeah, so it's all about customer engagement and customer experience and giving a better experience to customers. So we heard this being brought up that you want to deliver to your customers faster and faster. So at least in the warehousing space, you would want to be in more urban infill centers. So be very close to the customer. Look at how your warehouses are. You will not have warehouses outside the city, those mega football fields which convert into warehouses. Rather, you'll have warehouses in urban centers. So how you leverage on tech and how you use a lot of AI and ML to decide what stock you keep where and how you fulfill your customer orders. I think that's going to be a big change.
Wow. Mr. Prashant?
Yeah, I think harnessing the value of data, be it from like product itself, product putting the data in the forms of IoT and other devices, and then monitoring and analyzing those data for enhancing the value to the customers.
Wow. Mr. Saurabh?
I feel new entrants in the automobile sector, people who have a lot of technology and equipment, power to purchase. I think those are going to be the key disruptors. They will push the existing players to look at things a different way and then create value for new customers. I mean, I think that's the key disruption size.
Okay. We'll go to David for the last.
I will go with drone enhanced deliveries. Okay, not drone replacing humans, but just enhanced. Not thinking very big. Just for example, right? A driver reaches one end of a red light, and the drone takes it from this side of the red light to the other side of the red light. You save 5-10 minutes just like that in Bangalore, right? Things like that, or one side of a track in Mumbai to the other side of the track. Again, you save 5-10 minutes. I think enhanced, not replaced, but enhanced deliveries through drones is what I think might be a good disruption.
Interesting. All next time the drones could moderate the session as well. Fantastic. So good. I think we've just come to the end, and probably I take that opportunity to summarize wonderful concepts from each one of you highlighted. We heard about VUCA as a concept, which Prashant, thank you for bringing in, where you talked about for tomorrow's organization, the future is more agile and more adaptable. We heard Katrina also talking about, how a data accessibility, including David talked about real time to make quick decisions. And that's where you use the data, which plays an important role to study a consumer behavior. And where, almost all panelists talked about that the more and more you have data from disparate sources, how do you create a uniformity? How do you use that particular bit to make intelligent decision, including to an extent what Vinod talked about, making it more hyper-personalized for the end consumer. Our future post-COVID, indeed, all of us echoed that it will be digital. I think our more focus will be on process simplifications, simplifying customer journeys. We talked about using lean as one of the techniques and tools, like what we talked about agile as an organization, will become the norm as we go ahead, including what Mohit stated, the gaps of geography, especially moving to tier 2, tier 3. Because of the strong connectivity, we are almost able to reach out millions and millions of customers without any geographical barriers on that particular bit. So with that, I think I'll just end saying that both technology and data insights can not only gives the tomorrow organizations and the consumers a safer, smarter, and sustainable outcomes, but it also changes the rules of the games and the dynamics. So with that, we come to the end of the panel. Thank you very much for the interesting insights, and look forward to connect with each one of you on an individual basis as well. So thank you and take care. So over to you, Kavya. If there are any questions, we can take it up. Otherwise, we can conclude the session.
Thank you very much, Kamlesh. But I believe that 2 questions that we received has already been covered by the brilliant panelists, and thanks for your questions. So it's already taken care of. But I must thank you for beautifully moderating this as well, because we managed to gather some really interesting observations and some amazing concepts through this panel. So I'm going to take a second to say thank you to all our panelists for joining us this evening and for sharing your thoughts. Thank you very much again.
Wonderful. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.